This is the policeman that took the life of Sarah Everard. Hello there, stranger. This is part 63 of the England's Whole Lifers list, so viewer discretion is advised. So today I'm going to be telling you about Wayne Couzens, born the 20th of December 1972. In 2002, aged 30, he joined the Territorial Army and then over the course of the next 4 years applied to be a policeman 3 times, but each time he was unsuccessful. In 2006, he was finally successful and became a special constable with the Kent Police. In 2011, he joined the Civil Nuclear Constabulary as a firearms officer. In 2018, he joined the Metropolitan Police. In 2019, he joined a response team in Bromley, South London. And then in February 2020, he moved to Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. There were at least 4 incidents of indecent exposure, with the first being in 2015, but Kent Police failed to investigate it. The second that we know of was the 13th of November 2020, when a woman was cycling along a woodland path when Couzens stepped out from behind the trees, naked and pleasuring himself. And then on 2 separate occasions, on the 14th and the 21st of February 2021, he exposed himself to 2 different female staff members at a drive-through of a fast food restaurant. During those 2 incidents, he had been driving his own car and used his own card to pay for his food. And by this time, he was 48 years old and living in Kent with his wife and 2 children and working in London. And by the time of those 2 indecent exposure events in February 2021, he was already planning to abduct and a woman. In fact, he'd spent a considerable amount of time planning and researching how to carry out his wicked fantasy. In fact, in the build-up to the event in question, he travelled into London 3 times for no apparent reason. He bought a number of items to aid him in his plan, including a police-issue handcuff key, self-adhesive carpet protector film, and a bundle of 14 hairbands. On the 28th of February 2021, he hired a car from Dover. On the 3rd of March, he told his family he would be working the night shift in London, and then he took his own family car, a Seat, to a non-residential area in Dover and parked it up where it would not be seen. He switched it out for the rental car, took some of his police kit with him, and headed into London. He did not go to work or anywhere near his place of work. Instead, he spent a long time driving around London hunting for a victim. And for me, this is what makes this case so much more terrifying. He was so well prepared. He had a hire car that could easily pass as a police vehicle. All of his kit was authentic because he was literally a police officer. And so he would have been so confident and well versed when he approached his victim. He would have known exactly how to act and what to say to not raise any suspicions. Of course, being the 3rd of March 2021, there were still plenty of COVID restrictions in place, and it's assumed that Couzens had planned to use those COVID restrictions as a means to arrest his victim. Sarah Everard was a 33-year-old marketing executive who had left her home in Brixton Hill to go and visit a friend in Clapham on the evening of the 3rd of March 2021. How do you describe a person that you've never met? There are no words to accurately describe a person's energy, their influence on loved ones' lives, their smile, their laugh, the little gestures and quirks a person picks up throughout their lives. Picture your best friend, your sister, that one cousin, your mad auntie, your mum. That is what these cases are. It's what this case is. Another beautiful, much-loved, innocent woman. Another unique person, a character that we might not have known personally, but we can imagine strangers. So Sarah went to visit her friend and they had a little drink together, and then at around 9 o'clock she set off to walk home some 2.5 miles away. She called her boyfriend on that walk and they would chat for around 14 minutes. She's seen at 28 minutes past 9 on CCTV, still alone. But then just 7 minutes later, a bus CCTV camera would pick up images of Sarah with Couzens stood next to his hire car, which had its hazard lights on. Couzens had seen Sarah walking home alone and stopped her right there on the southbound ring road. It's assumed that he told her that she was breaking lockdown restrictions and that she was under arrest. A witness then saw Sarah being handcuffed. And of course, for all the reasons that I said before, Sarah believed him. He was a police officer, so she was placed under arrest and put into the back of his car. He then drove her the 80 miles back to Dover, and only Couzens knows what happened during that journey. At what point Sarah realised what was happening to her, it's impossible to tell. The absolute terror of her situation, handcuffed and kidnapped by a maniac and taken miles and miles away from home, unable to escape. It is unimaginable what Sarah Everard must have gone through in the back of that car. He drove back to his own car, which obviously had been left in a secluded area, and so he was able to transfer Sarah from the hire car to his own Seat. He then drove to another secluded area where he awed Sarah and then used his police belt to compress her neck until she passed away. It's believed that that happened before 2:34 a.m. because that is when he went into a petrol station to make a purchase. By 8:30 a.m. on the 4th of March, he had returned the hire car. He then drove miles away into Sandwich to throw Sarah's phone into a waterway. The next day, he bought a can of petrol and some builder's bags. He then headed into the woods in Ashford, where he had kept Sarah's body in an abandoned fridge-freezer unit. He set Sarah's remains on fire in a further effort to cover up his horrific crime. He then transferred Sarah's body into the 2 builder's bags and put them in a pond. Couzens had purchased a small parcel of woodland in Ashford, Kent, and the pond where he deposited Sarah's remains was only 100 metres outside of his own property line. During this time, he called off sick from work, claiming stress, and because, of course, he was a firearms officer, he emailed in to say that he no longer wanted to carry a firearm and was given further time off. On the 7th of March, this sick bastard took his family to the same area of woodlands where he had disposed of Sarah's remains and allowed his children to play there. He was no doubt reliving the moment. By the 9th of March, the investigation was closing in on him, and suspiciously, just 40 minutes before the police turned up to his house, he reset his phone to factory settings, which is the best you can do to wipe clear all of the data. I wonder if someone gave him the heads up that they was coming. When questioned about Sarah, this piece of shit makes up a story about being under duress from an Eastern European human trafficking gang who was making him kidnap women for them. He says they've threatened his family and he's scared for his family. I've watched the interview. It's available on YouTube if you're interested. He is pathetic. Sarah's body would be found the next day, the 10th of March. The investigation was thorough. The bus CCTV camera had picked up the license plate of the hire car, which Couzens had hired in his own name. They used cell site data, ANPR cameras, and nearly 2,000 hours of CCTV footage to piece together the night in question. By the time of his arrest, Couzens really had no credible argument. He would eventually plead guilty to the abduction, and murder of Sarah Everard. There were police failings in the vetting process in this case. He slipped through the net when he shouldn't have. The indecent exposures not being investigated properly is also another massive failing, of course. In fact, a massively surprising fail is that just hours before Sarah was abducted, one of Couzens' colleagues was at the fast food restaurant where he had exposed himself twice in February. It's entirely unclear if she was actively covering for him, but her investigation led nowhere. You'll be very pleased to hear that she is no longer a serving police officer. A public inquiry was, of course, made, and it said that Couzens should never have been a police officer, and it also called for the radical overhaul of the recruitment process for police. Sarah's family's response to that was that Sarah died because Couzens was a police officer, because she would not have got into the car of a strange man. And before anyone says that Sarah shouldn't have been out in lockdown, shut up, because neither should he. None of this was Sarah's fault. She was walking in a well-lit residential area and it wasn't super late at night for any other smart mouths. Women should be able to walk alone without being kidnapped and murdered, without having serving police officers using the law against us. Couzens was given his whole life order on the 30th of September 2021. He's never shown any remorse. Oh, I had so much more to say on this one as usual, but rest in peace to the beautiful Sarah Everard. I, for one, will never forget you.